Hey everybody, today I'm going to show you how to make biltong. Now biltong is like beef jerky, but it's not beef jerky. It's basically raw beef, heavily seasoned, and then air dried. There's no smoking, no cooking. It's just like beef jerky in the sense it is really tough and it lasts forever without refrigeration. It's South African in origin, and I've got a little modification of the recipe, but let's show you how to make this. So the spice mix is the most important, and you see I've got this all ground up. But basically what it is roasted browned coriander seed, a whole bunch of it. This is basically the seed from cilantro. And then almost this whole bottle of black peppercorns, totally ground up. And then I also put in some cloves. Now some people put brown sugar and some other stuff, but this is my basic recipe. Then what I'm going to do is slice it up, cover it in kosher salt. I use coarse. And then, after it sits for about an hour, drench it in vinegar. This is apple cider vinegar. And then just dry it in my Biltong box. So let's start with the meat. These are big pieces of beef, two different types of cuts here, but you don't want a huge amount of fat. And so you'll notice both of these have a fat layer on the bottom. And so the first thing I'm going to do is cut off that fat layer. Now I'm going to cut it into strips, but my strips are a lot thicker than you think. I'm going about a ½ an inch. Watch how wide. And then I'm going to cut them maybe about 2 inches wide like this. And that's all there is for the meat preparation. Next you want to salt it heavily, both sides. Again, I use the coarse salt. And then let it sit just like this, both sides. Let it sit just like this for about an hour. Use less time for less saltiness, more time for more saltiness. It's been about 45 minutes. My last batch was an hour and it was a little too salty. So this is what it looks like. And so now what I'm going to do is basically try to get some of that salt off and then line these up in a new container. And I'm going to give them a little bath in vinegar. And again, this is apple cider vinegar. Now some recipes say to marinate this for hours and hours in the vinegar, but you don't need to. It's only been a few minutes and you see how gray this is turning? That's because the vinegar is denaturing the proteins. It's kind of like cooking. But basically over here you see the raw meat, you see how red it is? So when it turns gray like this, it's ready to put on this rack to let drip dry. So now we're going to spice these, and you just want to get a big heavy coat on both sides. So maybe lay it down one way and then flip it over the other way after you rub it in. So I'm going to have a lot here, you can tell. But basically just pat it down really well like this. Then I can return it to my drying rack. So just coat them as heavily as you'd like. Ready for the Biltong box. This is so good, I just eat it raw. Here's my Biltong box. So I made this out of an old smoker that basically the element corroded, so it didn't work anymore. I took out the thermometer and plugged this hole. Then what I did was I plugged the back vent hole, and then I cut a hole in the side and then fitted it with some aluminum dryer vent tubing, exhaust vent, and then I've threaded through a shop light with a 60-watt bulb. Fits perfectly through that hole. And then just to keep the flies out, I've got some cheesecloth over there. Now up here I've got a drip tray, just some aluminum foil, and a rack up here. As far as the top is concerned, again I've got cheesecloth stapled down, and what's underneath this is a vent like you would have in a house. So you see this little vent, and I can open and close these louvers. And so now I'm going to use these bent paper clips and suspend the biltong, the meat, off this top rack. All you have to do is pierce it like that and then hang it. And here's all that beef made into biltong hanging in my Biltong box. I'm going to close the door and it should be ready in about 2 or 3 days. All right, it's been about 2 days and it's been pretty chilly in here. Here's my biltong, and how long you want this to dry depends on your particular preferences. This one is pretty skinny, so it's pretty dried out. Some of the thicker ones like this are still going to be soft inside. All right, here's a finished thick piece. Look at the marbling, the fat in there. This is nice and tender. This is good stuff. Mmm.